In the world of large, three-row luxury SUVs, the Navigator pretty much set the standard when the first generation model came out back in 1998. Now, in fact, it did so well for the company sales-wise, it forced General Motors to rush development of what we now know as a Cadillac Escalade. Now, over the years, the Escalade really started to steal the Navigator's thunder, and it showed in these sales numbers. But since then, Lincoln is really looking to get that standard of the world back. And today, I'm just outside of Portland, Oregon, known as in this area called Mount Hood, and we're going to find out if this all-new fourth generation Navigator finally has what it takes to take the crown back from the Cadillac Escalade. When you looked at all the luxury brands here in America, Lincoln really was struggling with a huge identity crisis. They were really criticized heavily for being a bunch of fancy rebadged Fords. Luckily, Lincoln is really trying to change that image, and it really all started with the all-new Continental sedan. Now you can see for this all-new fourth generation Navigator, Lincoln took everything they learned from the Continental and basically grafted it onto this all-new Navigator. The front-end design is definitely very distinctive. I think Lincoln is doing a really good job with their current design language, getting rid of that really ugly split-winged grille that I didn't like, and instead replacing it with a very chrome Bentley style grille. These standard LED headlights are really attractive. They're standard on every trim of the Navigator. They're full LED, so they also swivel. They have LED daytime running light. They have an LED turn signal. You have LED fog lights. And this car, when it launches, is available in 4 different trims. This is the top-of-the-line Black Label, which is kind of like an all-new trim level for Lincoln, where they're trying to kind of customize the delivery process based on the customer, which is really what people expect in this class of vehicle. Now you can see this is a very large vehicle. It's the largest vehicle Lincoln has ever made, and it still shares a platform with the all-new Ford Expedition, which means it rides on the F-150's aluminum-intensive architecture. It's still a body-on-frame design, and it's a really large vehicle. This is the standard size version. Just like the Expedition, you can also get a Navigator L, which is about 15 inches longer. Its wheelbase stretches around 222 inches long, which makes it about a couple inches longer than the previous generation. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the wheels. These are massive 22-inch wheels that come standard on the Black Label model. I'm not really sure I'm the biggest fan of the wheels. I think there's far too many spokes. It kind of fits the character of this car, but for me, it would probably be a pain in the ass to actually clean this thing. I imagine a lot of owners of this car probably won't even wash the car themselves. Now, as I said earlier, this is the standard wheelbase model, and really when it comes to the design, I believe Lincoln said they only share the doors and the roof with the Expedition. Everything else is very unique to this car, and it really shows. Now, at the back, very traditional Lincoln look with the wraparound LED taillights, which also look nice. It's very distinctive and different from the Expedition. I think it looks a lot better than the all-new Expedition that I tested a couple of months ago. You can see the Lincoln badge is spelled out. You have this separate opening liftgate here where the glass opens by itself or independently of the liftgate. Of course, it has the power programmable liftgate where it's hands-free. Now, speaking of the cargo area, this is a big SUV. It still needs to be a very practical car. And you can see here, it's got the power tailgate, as I mentioned. Now, this being the standard wheelbase model does mean that you have less cargo capacity. You're looking at around 19.3 cubic feet of space with all the seats up. Now, that is roughly what you're gonna get in a lot of mid-size 3-row crossover SUVs. Actually, maybe a little bit more. If you guys go for the L model, it gives you all that space into the cargo area, which you're gonna double in size. And if you wanna fold down these seats, Lincoln makes it really easy. You just push a button here, you can fold down the second and the third row, which by the way, the second row is a captain's chairs in this particular model. You can also get it with a 3-row bench, so you can seat 8 if you guys choose a lower trim. This expands it to roughly around 60 cubic feet of space. And then if you fold down everything entirely, you're looking at around 103 cubic feet of space, which is about the same as what you get in an Expedition. The L will extend it to around 130 cubic feet of space. So again, this type of vehicle is very practical. It tows a lot. It has room for up to 8 people and other things, and there's a reason why it still does really well here in America. So when you first approach the new Navigator, you can see this is a huge vehicle, and it will remind you of that pretty much every time. Here is the current key fob for the vehicle. It's the newest Lincoln key, as you guys can see. It's very similar to the Ford key. It's a massive key. It has all the functions you'd expect: remote start, open the tailgate, lock, unlock. So if you want to lock the vehicle, just touch that button here. To activate the remote start, just double tap that. The vehicle starts right up for you really quick. If you want to shut off the engine, just double tap it again. There are some ridges here on the door handle. If you touch your hand there, it obviously is going to lock the door. To unlock it, there's a sensor on the back of the handle. Just touch that here. It'll unlock the doors, and then as you guys saw, the power deploying running boards also come out to help you get into this vehicle. Now, check out this freaking interior. I mean, when I first saw this car at the auto show, I was pretty much blown away with this interior quality. This one, being the black label, is basically the nicest interior that Lincoln offers. You can see my tester has the optional 30-way perfect position seats that we get from the Continental. These seats are honestly just super freaking ridiculous with the amount of adjustability. I had trouble getting comfortable, but we'll talk about that later on. This particular one, because it's a black label, has the destination themed interior. So you have this red mahogany kind of brownish leather. There's also two other options. There's like a Chalet, and there's like some kind of sailor yacht club option, which gives you like a blue leather. This is definitely the most interesting aspect of the new Navigator, but it's a nice solid sounding door, which is good because this is a very expensive vehicle. You want it to give you that impression of quality. Now, to start the vehicle up, just put your foot on the brake, and then the start stop button is up here. I kind of confused it for the trailer brake backup knob here several times, but to start it up, just push that button here and the engine fires right up. This car's interior looks very much like a Bentley or a Rolls-Royce. I'm definitely leaning more toward a Bentley. You can see lots of stitching everywhere. The dash is all stitched. It's all stitched here. There's real aluminum trim, piano black plastic. There's real wood trim. The chrome is really nice. I mean, this interior is very flashy and blingy. So if you don't like shiny, you're probably not going to like this interior very much. The door panels here are also soft leather with more stitching. This door handle here is very similar to what you find in the F-150. The seat controls have been moved here. You can see there's so many ways you can adjust the seat. It's a little overwhelming, and they're also massaged. So if you push that button here, just like the Expedition, it brings up a screen here where you can kind of adjust the massage. One thing that this 30-way perfect position seats allow you is you can adjust the individual bolsters, which is pretty cool and a little bit unnecessary. But looking at the steering wheel here, you can see it's also unique to the Navigator. It doesn't share it with the Ford Expedition, and that's the same going for the rest of the interior. A lot of the switchgear and parts here are very unique to this car. Now, I want to go back to the instrument panel display here because it is a full LCD display that's unique to the Navigator, and I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, Lincoln allows you to customize it a bit. You can go through your various trip computer functions here, your information, but the needles here don't actually light up the gauge port until it's actually floating over the number, which I don't really like. It's not very much like Audi's virtual cockpit or the Mercedes system where it allows you to put the navigation function into the actual display. It just looks a little bit more basic, and I wish that the graphics looked a little bit more unique and pretty. Now, there's a 10-inch head-up display above there that shows a lot of information. It's controlled from this little button here on the steering wheel where you can adjust the settings, adjust the actual level on the windshield. And the rest of this interior here, you can see the stock here, the turn signal stocks aren't even shared with any Ford product, which is really nice detail that Lincoln's including. Now, the Revel audio system over here has 20 speakers, and it sounds incredible. So now let's go to the head unit here, because when you go here to the head unit, to the main screen, you're obviously looking at, the standard home screen. This is the latest Sync 3, although the graphics have just been beefed up. If you guys remember my complaints with the other Ford products, they just looked childish. They looked like they were from an iPhone a couple generations ago. That is clearly not the case anymore. You can see with Apple Maps installed, you're going to show, when your Apple CarPlay is installed, you're going to show your Apple Maps. I'm going to unplug my phone really quick. I'm going to show you guys the standard Ford or Lincoln navigation head unit. You can see the display has been significantly updated. It works just like a tablet. I think this is really what the company needed. I wouldn't be surprised to see them start trickling this head unit down to the lower product Fords. It's really nice to see this. I'm a little surprised though that there's a lot of black plastic here on the screen. I kind of wish that Lincoln made it more of a widescreen and just used this up. But again, I'm kind of nitpicking here. When you put the vehicle into reverse, there's also a 360 camera. This one will give you, my particular tester, the lift gate's open so you can't see it, but you can see it gives you like a 360 perimeter scan. It has front and rear parking sensors. This vehicle will also parallel park itself as well if you guys choose to have it do so. Down here as well, you'll have all your different controls. The transmission is controlled by this array of buttons. I don't really particularly like it. I kept thinking this was the transmission selector or this. It's going to take some time to get used to this push button transmission selector. Now, I also want to talk about one thing because in my Instagram photo account, you saw that when you plugged in your phone, it allowed you to use Waze in the actual head unit here. For some reason, when I picked up the car, when I got to this event, it allowed me to do so. However, now, for some reason, when I go to Maps, it's only showing me the Apple CarPlay map, the Apple map. So I'm a little frustrated at that. Honestly, I will say that when I had Waze working, it literally graphs what you see here on your phone onto the screen, which is nice. However, it was definitely very laggy. So you can tell that Lincoln and Ford have some work to do, but it is really nice to see that car companies starting to actually integrate the Waze navigation map into the actual interface here. But the fact that it's not working now, I couldn't get it to work. I spent a good like 30 minutes trying to figure it out, is a little bit frustrating. You can see here all your climate control settings are here. There's a nice buttons for your heated and cooled seat setting. Lots of storage right here. There's 2 USB ports, a wireless charging pad right there, your cup holders right there. This controls your drive mode selector. When you switch over the drive modes, you can see here it shows a really nice like screen or representation of it. Excite is the sport mode. There's conserve, which is like eco, normal, 4x4 auto, slippery, deep conditions, snow climb. I mean, this is really, really elaborate. So the graphics there to show that is really cool. I just wish that they allowed you to put like the navigation map into the actual screen right there. Now, opening this up reveals a pretty good amount of space. There's actually a CD player slot in the center console right here, which is kind of old technology. Most car companies are getting rid of that, but it's a really deep area. The leather is really soft and smooth right there. If you look above you, you can see there's a gigantic panoramic sunroof. It's controlled by these controls over here. And then over here, you'll find the glove compartment, which is actually a little bit on the smaller size, but it's lined with felt. It's damped. The seats you can see here look so strange when you look at it from the side, but it allows you to adjust it so many ways. You can actually adjust this little pocket right here to come forward or back, and then the headrest is adjustable. I mean, it's a little bit overwhelming. This interior can be really overwhelming at first, but I have to say Lincoln has finally delivered a world-class interior that is worthy of this car and the price tag. So a lot of you who look at this interior for the first time are gonna be super impressed.
So with the front seats being as good as they are, how does the second row compare in the new Navigator? Well, this particular one, because it's a black label, gives you the captain's chairs. If you guys want a bench seat, you're going to have to downgrade to a lower trim. This one, as it sits, includes the configuration as standard, and the space back here is pretty impressive. There's plenty of leg room, plenty of headroom, plenty of shoulder room, so there's a lot of room to spread out. Now, this is a pretty expensive car, so the features in the second row, I expect them to be good, and this is kind of where the Navigator leaves something to be desired. Now, first of all, the seats, they move forward and back, but I'm kind of surprised that they are manual adjusting. I mean, at this price point, I was kind of hoping that Lincoln would give you power adjusting seats. You do have buttons here to open and close the roof sunshade above you, and you also have 3-zone climate control here, so the rear seat passengers can adjust their own climate. However, most competitor vehicles offer you a 4-zone adjustment, and I do feel the second row is skimped a bit. At least Lincoln does give you 2 USB charging outlets, a regular power outlet, and another set of cup holders that pop out. And in terms of the features, the second row is only heated as well. Most competitors offer a heated and cooled seat, so why no cooled seat options? Now underneath here you have a storage console with a very deep well that mimics the front. There is a little screen here that allows rear seat passengers to control the Sync 3 from the front to here, and then Lincoln does offer a rear seat entertainment system that my tester is missing. There's no manual rear seat window sunshade, which I think is inexcusable, and I really think they should have included 4-zone climate control and heated and cooled second row seats, because this is a pretty expensive vehicle, and I think buyers expect that. But let's get into the third row and see how that compares in this new Navigator. So getting back into the third row of the Navigator actually couldn't be easier. Lincoln gives you a button right here on the pillar where you can just push this button and the second row hydraulically moves forward. Then all you have to do is slide the seat up and out of the way. But once you do that, you can see the actual room it gives you to get back here is massive, so it's not difficult to climb back here. And once you're ready, just use the running board and grab handle to hoist yourself up and step into the third row. Now I'm going to move over to the other side so you can see the space. Now this is the Navigator's biggest strength. Same with the Expedition. The flat floor really helps significantly increase the space. It's because of that independent rear suspension, and it's why the GM trucks really need to switch to this design, because you can actually put full-size adults back here, 3 of them comfortably. I mean, this is what with the seat moved all the way back, and there's plenty of leg and foot space for me, and I'm incredibly happy with the room on a long trip. And if you guys don't get the captain's chairs, you can actually fit 8 people in this car and have them comfortable with all their stuff. Now the third row is also electrically reclining with the touch of this button, which is ironic since the second row is manual, yet you can get a power folding and reclining third row. Now in terms of the rest of the materials, you get lots of suede on the headliner and the pillars, but some of the hard touch plastics in certain areas, which is what I expected. But overall, the Navigator and Expedition are one of the few full-size SUVs that can comfortably seat full-size adults in the actual third row.
So underneath the very long hood of the Navigator, this vehicle has kind of always had a unique powertrain compared to the Expedition, and that's really the case, of course, with this all-new version. Now, you'd expect a V8, but you're not going to find a V8. Just like the Expedition, Lincoln replaced the old 5.4 V8 with a 3.5 twin-turbo V6 back in 2015. Now, this year, for this all-new generation, the Navigator gets the highest output, of course. Now, you guys remember my review of the Expedition? That had 400 horsepower. This has 450 horsepower and 510 pound-feet of torque. Now, if those numbers sound familiar, it's the same motor in the Ford Raptor, which is a great thing. Now, it's all going out through a 10-speed automatic transmission. That's the same transmission that Ford co-developed with General Motors. You can get this vehicle in either rear or four-wheel drive, like my Tester. Now, the Navigator is lighter this year because it's now on that aluminum chassis. It's about 200 pounds lighter. This is still not a very light vehicle. As this one sits, it weighs 6,100 pounds, which is a good couple hundred pounds heavier than the last Expedition that I tested. This vehicle also still tows a lot. It tows around 8,300 pounds, which is a little bit less than the Expedition, not by much. And fuel economy, in case you're wondering, it's rated at 16 in the city, 21 on the highway. You can put regular in it, but Lincoln recommends you put premium for the best performance. Just put premium in it. It's about 1 or 2 mpg less than what you get in the Expedition. Let's get out on the road and see how this all performs, shall we? All right, so the moment you guys have been waiting for. I've gotten so many requests to film the all-new Navigator. This is also a car that I've been super excited to drive. I mean, come on, look at this car. It's such an incredible looking car, and the interior is just gorgeous. Now, first of all, let's get out here on the road and see how this actually feels. It's a big car, and you're gonna feel that instantly. Even though Lincoln reduced the weight of this car by like 250 pounds, it's still a big vehicle. Now, first settling into the road here, I want to talk about the fact that first of all, I'm getting a massage that is excellent. I would put this massage right up there with what Volvo offers or what Mercedes offers. And the seats, I have trouble finding a comfortable position because there's just too many ways you can adjust the seats. There is definitely such a thing as overkill, and these seats are probably too much. I might pass on the seats, but then Lincoln also bundles the massage function, which kind of annoys me. The seats are like a $1,300 option, so most of you probably will get it if you're going to go for the black label trim. Now, going down the road here, in the past, Navigators kind of just felt like guzzied up Expeditions, and you know, driving this one, I don't really feel like that's the case anymore. I mean, it feels like an entirely different vehicle because of the overall ambiance that Lincoln gives you in this car. The interior is so vastly different. I mean, I complained about the Expedition's interior for being a little too cheap looking and similar to the F-150, especially at the near $80,000 price tag. But let me come to a stop here. Let me put my foot down. I'm going to switch the drive mode over here to Excite, which is a silly name for an SUV, but it's in sport mode now. We're going to floor it. A little bit of lag. Wow. All right, this thing is pretty damn quick, I have to say. Now, obviously, now that it's a twin turbo 6, it doesn't have the noises you're going to get from like the Cadillac Escalade with its 6.2 liter V8, but Ford is definitely synthesizing the engine sound here, just like they did in the Expedition. Now, compared to the Expedition, this motor is the same motor that you're going to get in the Raptor, and it has so much power. I mean, 450 horsepower and 510 pound-feet of torque. That is just absolutely ridiculous amounts of power. That doesn't match the horsepower of the 6.2 V8 in the GM products, but it does have way more torque. And with that 10-speed transmission, it's essentially the same transmission that I drove in the Tahoe RST. It feels like this is quicker than that vehicle or the Escalade. 0 to 60 times have ranged from like 6 seconds to I've seen it as quick as like 5.8. It's a really fast car that can really get out of its own way. It makes this vehicle shrink. Now let's talk a little bit about the handling, because you know, obviously this car has an independent rear suspension. It's got that new T3 chassis where it's a steel frame like the F-150 but an aluminum body. This is a very car-like driving vehicle. It also rides incredibly well. It does have the adjustable dampers, but no air suspension, which really surprised me. I thought Lincoln would throw in an air suspension at this point, but right now I have it in its sport mode. I'm going to go over to normal, and you can feel instantly the ride gets a lot more settled. In sport mode, at least on these roads, these crappy roads here in Portland, it's a little bit of a bumpy ride with these 22-inch wheels, but you put it back to normal, it settles down a little bit. I've driven so many luxury SUVs today. I have to say that the the Navigator's ride is definitely up there in terms of world class, but it's not quite as soft and squishy as some of the competitors that have the air suspension, so Lincoln can really improve that there. Now in terms of the visibility, it's also really easy to see out of this vehicle. You have a nice, high up seating position, so you have a great view. You have big side mirrors, a good view out of the front, out of the back. You have all the driver assistance tech that you expect in this car. It's got active lane keep assist, adaptive cruise control with full stop and go capabilities. And really, as I hit some bumps here, you can feel with it in normal mode, it's a little bit softer, which is good because you want this to be a comfortable vehicle. It's not sporty to drive by any means, but that's okay. That's not this car's main mission, so you may want to consider something that's a little bit smaller. But as if you're going to drive this on an everyday basis and then attack some back roads, since you have to go, drive through these on your way home, the Navigator will be able to handle it just fine. I do notice a little bit of turbo lag right at the beginning. It's like half a second, and I'm not entirely sure if it's the transmission trying to get its thoughts together, but it does feel a little soft initially, but once the revs climb up to like 2,000 RPM, that goes away and you get a nice shove of torque into the power band, and it's just a really pleasant overall car. It's a really quiet engine, really refined engine, likes to rev, so Ford did a really good job with the powertrain. I would love to see this motor show up in something a little bit lighter, like maybe even the next generation, Explorer Sport, or Lincoln just showed us the new Aviator concept, which supposedly may have this engine along with a plug-in hybrid option. So driving this Navigator, this new one, it's definitely, I would have to say, lives up to the hype that Lincoln created. It feels like a new standard in the segment. I mean, let's face it, this is a really competitive segment, and I always thought the Escalade to be, or was, a pleasant driving vehicle, but it's nice to see Lincoln finally step up their game and offer a car that can truly challenge the Escalade, which has been really the king in this large SUV segment. So when Lincoln first showed us the Navigator concept a couple years ago, it was a genuine showstopper, especially with the gullwing Tesla Model X style doors, and then that little ramp that kind of popped out when you opened up the door. Now obviously those two things didn't make it to production, but the overall design of this car did, and it's definitely a showstopper when you see it out in person. As you guys saw from the overall review, the design is so different from the Expedition Platform A. It truly is showing us that Lincoln is ready to deliver world-class luxury vehicles. From the test drive, it has a really smooth ride, really efficient but quick powertrain, really great 10-speed transmission. The seats, while I had trouble finding a comfortable position in them, those of you who like that level of adjustability will really find a lot to like with this all-new Navigator. Of course, being an all-new vehicle like this, Lincoln putting in the kind of money they did, this is not a cheap vehicle, and Lincoln did increase the price significantly for this all-new generation. It now starts at a tick over $72,000 for a base select trim level. Now, if you're gonna keep score, that's about a $10,000 increase versus the old Navigator, and that's okay because the old Navigator was pretty old and it was really much just a fancy Ford Expedition. This black label version is definitely a lot more money. Now, first of all, the vehicle is available in two sizes. The L is about $3,000 more expensive. This one starts at around $93,000 or $96,000 if you guys want the L for the black label version. My tester is pretty actually light on the options. You can easily tick up a Navigator to be over around $100,000. This one, as equipped, is around $96,000 with a destination, which is definitely a ridiculous amount of money. However, the Navigator's main competitor, the Cadillac Escalade, is actually around $2,500 more expensive to start, and you're also going to be paying around $90,000 to almost $100,000 for fully loaded versions. And at that point, I would have to say the Navigator is the new standard of the segment. And I know that that term belongs to Cadillac, but it's funny because Lincoln has actually stolen that from them. So if you guys are looking for the best full-size three-row luxury SUV, this one should be at the top of your list. But I hope you guys have also enjoyed my full overview on this 2018 Lincoln Navigator. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, make sure you follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.